Welcome to JasonWhiskyWise. My name is Jason and welcome back to the channel. And it has been such a long time since I've said that. I'm excited because we're going to get started and cover some whiskey reviews here on the channel. And we're going to do starting off with the Glenfarclas core range. So we've got quite a lot of whiskey reviews to come up in the coming weeks. And it's been a year and a half since my last video, and I will cover that whole sort of topic where I've been in sort of another video. I think I'll do like a channel update where I've been for the last year and a half. But for now, we've got the Glenfarclas core range, and we're going to try to cover as many of them as we can. And I do know there's one missing from this lineup, and that is the Glenfarclas 30. But I haven't been able to get to a shop and pick up the miniature yet. So fingers crossed, post lockdown number 2, I'll be able to go to a shop and pick up the 30 and then complete the whole series. But in the core range, we have the 10-year-old, the 12-year-old, which is now discontinued, the 15, which has a weird capsule. Some of you might have noticed straight away. And all I'll say, cork broke. It's been quite a long time since I checked that bottle, and lo and behold, it got damaged. We have the 21, the 25, and also the Glenfarclas 105 cask strength. Now, I did manage to get actually miniatures of all of these, and it's actually very easy to get a hold of the Glenfarclas core range because they do miniatures of everything. There's even a miniature of the elusive 40-year-old, but that was currently out of my price point, so I will wait a little while. And then fingers crossed get that in the January sort of sales, or maybe around about my birthday next year. So we'll start things off with the Glenfarclas 10-year-old, and this has been poured a little while in the glass because it's take number, I'll let you guys guess the takes, it's been quite a few. So the Glenfarclas 10-year-old is the entry-level whiskey in the Glenfarclas core range. And with my review style structure, forgot about that for a second. This is a 10-year-old whiskey. It is bottled at an ABV of 40% ABV. The distillery itself is the Glenfarclas Distillery. They are owned by the parent company, J&G Grant. Well, actually not parent company, it's family run, J&G Grant. And it is then located in the Speyside region of Scotland. Now, this is actually one of the few distilleries that has been kept family run for a very, very long time since its start. And I believe right now they're actually 6 generations in, and I believe it's George Grant who is currently their brand ambassador and sort of face of the brand of Glenfarclas. Now, Glenfarclas does have a lot of other whiskies in the market, not just their core range, but they also do have the family cask range. And these are where you've got different vintages, all the way from the 50s, all the way up to I think about 90s, and even some 2000s, where you've got different single cask releases. And some are absolutely incredible and phenomenal, but then also with that, you see the price is also quite high. So it's about whether you can explore the full family cask range, and at the same time, it can set you back a little bit in pocket. So without further ado, this whiskey, a price point is approximately around about 30 to 35 pounds here in the UK for a 70cl bottle. And in terms of exclusivity, it's not exclusive. So without further ado, let's get into what we can find on the nose of this whiskey. Into the nose. So to start things out on the nose of the Glenfarclas 10-year-old, this is actually sat in the glass for about, I think, 10 minutes or so. So it has developed a much more sweeter aroma. When I initially did nose this one, you did have a youthful, sherry, vibrant character about it. But now you've got more of those sweeter, softer, almost caramel notes, sweet vanilla. I'm getting those sweet red berries, cranberries, goji berries, and then you get this little bit of orchard fruits behind it. Red apple, red pear. Interestingly enough, also a little bit of rhubarb on this one. It's quite a surprising note to get on this. And it's not overly complex. It is rather simple, but very effective on the nose. But a lot more sweeter than I initially when I first nosed it. So without further ado, let's explore what they have on the palate. Slanger. To begin my initial impressions on the palate for this whiskey, straight away off the bat, texture-wise, the texture is quite light. It's got maybe I'd say a light medium, but probably pulling more towards that light texture where the liquid is actually rather watery. It doesn't have such a rich body about it. What I find really nice though, is you straight away start off with the spices, and you're starting with your gingery spice, adding a little bit of warmth to the palate. Then you get a little burst of fruit, and for me it's like a red apple, a red American apple, the really dark red apples, but with spices and specific spices, a bit of cinnamon, and you know those ones where you get spiced apples which are covered in cloves, and the sweetness from the clove, the sweet spice, just sort of the aromatics of it warm the palate and complement that little bit of fruity profile. Then from there, you're getting into more of the citrusy notes, the sweet satsuma, tangerine, and I do get a little bit of peach, but it's more, again, like a spiced peach. It's not really so sweet. And then just on the end of the palate, there is that little bit of that sherried character, but to me, I sort of more link this one to the filling of a mince pie. It's a bit more richer in terms of flavor profile, a bit more vibrant actually on the palate. But overall, very nice palate, very approachable for a 10-year-old whiskey. So without further ado, let's find what we can find into the finish of this whiskey. To conclude the Glenfarclas 10-year-old, I'll pop this over here. Overall notes on the finish for this whiskey, it does have, I'd say, a short, maybe pushing more towards a medium length to the finish of this whiskey. You do get those sherried fruits, but they are very soft, and you're more or less finding the citrus spices working their way through over the top, with a little bit of a sort of, I'd say, on the sides of the palate, a dry tannic note, which I think subtracts from the overall quality of the whiskey in terms of from when the nose to the palate to the finish. I think that is the weakest point on assessing this whiskey. However, now it's time to score this whiskey, and I'm going to give it here a 82 out of 100. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's been a long time since I've actually put a score up on the screen, but 82 points out of 100. Glenfarclas 10, it's great. Nose-wise, very nice and sweet, especially given time. Palate, I find it quite approachable. The only downside I feel really is the finish, which does pull it down a lot, and that's because of that dry sort of tannic quality, which you don't expect from a younger whiskey. But sometimes it could be down even to batches. Overall though, what I would recommend, value for money, great value for money, 30 to 35 pounds, because nowadays a lot of entry-level whiskies are in that 50 to 70 pound bracket, and it's refreshing to see a whiskey distillery putting an age statement, but at the same time keeping it affordable. In terms of time and water, I definitely say with this one, give it some time, because if you don't, it does get a little bit more spicier on the palate and on the nose. And for water, add a drop or two of water to whatever you feel is best for it, and then see how you actually play with this whiskey. But for me, a drop of water would actually help it quite a bit. Give it a little bit of time, and then go and explore this dram. So that's going to be it for me. It has been quite an interesting time getting back into these whiskey reviews, but this is the first of many. So hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. If you have, drop it a like. Feel free to hit the subscribe button, which I don't know where it's going to be on the screen, probably over here. And feel free to check out some other videos, which I'll leave on the screen. This has been me, JasonWhiskyWise, and I'll catch you for the next video. Slàinte.